So I am here at Bluebell Cottage Gardens in Cheshire, junction what off the M6?
10 or 11, depending on which way you come.
There you go, junction 10 or 11 off the M6.
And 56.
And the M56. It is a garden that I have been looking at online for years, ordering from occasionally for years, and it is owned by the gorgeous Sue Beesley, who is here with me today. And I thought, since I was up here, Sue is very supportive of other small businesses. So I've just been talking to Gemma of Colourwheel Garden, who is a cut flower grower. And I've just been talking to Benjamin Ranyard, who is an old friend and colleague of mine, who sells cut flower seeds, both of whom sort of have used this place as a base over the last year or so, haven't they?
Yeah, it's one thing I absolutely love about running this place. I've had people have come and worked for me on Saturdays who've then ended up in full-time horticulture, and and most of my staff have come out of some other industry, and some stay and some move on, and some, like Gemma and Ben, sort of base here for a while and are able to either build in the case of Gemma or change and expand in the case of Ben.
It's fantastic.
It's lovely. I enjoy it.
So what's your background, Sue? How did you get into running quite a large, very beautiful garden with a nursery attached?
Kind of serendipity, but accidents don't happen by accident in a way, do they?
No, they don't.
So I was in the IT industry. Well, I was really the sort of director commercial side of running a privately owned IT business for many years. I then stepped aside 15 years ago to run this. The story, which is kind of widely known, I get slightly bored telling it because everybody focuses on that, is I entered and won the BBC Garden of the Year competition.
I thought there was a story there, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's it. So, but it's long, as everybody still gets quite excited by it, but for me it gave me, so I found this place because it was up for sale.
Yes.
And I discovered it looking for plants to build the Garden of the Year garden with.
Oh, you see.
Exactly. And we'd been looking to move at the time. We were on a busy road, and it's one of those things, you do it and then afterwards you realise, what have I taken on? What have I taken on?
Well, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you a bit more about what we've got here. So what you've made, what kind of a garden was here, or have you made it all?
So there was a garden here, and it was open to the public. It was an RHS partner garden and an RHS partner nursery, but it was mostly lawns with sort of straight line beds around it.
Not many straight lines here
Can
now.
I just have a quick look at what you can see through the camera? So where you can see through there now, there's a brick pergola just ahead of you. There we go. So I'm a bit of a change junkie, and I've been making changes in this garden from the very first year. And what you happen to be looking at there is the most recent change. So there.
Should we walk down towards it?
So as we walk towards it, you can see we've got these curvy beds. Well, these were borders with straight lines, so we would be on a lawn, whereas now I think that we're on a grass path.
Yes.
And that's what we've been doing.
And there's a lovely pond.
Yeah, you're looking at it in October, and we close the gardens at the end of September. So this is its autumnal.
It's
There's still plenty to see looking at it through
the colour is really fantastic, but I do think for small businesses, let's keep walking, there is a lovely thing that if you can choose to stop, you can choose a cut-off point, then it gives you an opportunity to really stand back and see what you've achieved through the year.
Well, there is that. Also, it just to link things together from what you've just said. So if you look at that brick pergola ahead of you, it sort of is a nice natural path that goes through. So a year ago, standing here, we would have been looking at a massive laurel hedge. If you can imagine a huge lump of green, I can't. Let's do it like that. Yes. And it was just a big dark blob. So I decided with the others, I like to collaborate. It's great fun. We decided that would all come out. So now you can see the houses beyond, which is less good, but we'll fill that space in time. Created this pergola. There's a right turn into a new wall garden.
And the cut flower patch you've made.
Well, but let me just link
Yes.
back to what you said. So for a while I've been thinking, I felt like a bit constrained here. The nursery is too small. Wanted to be able to build our trade side, you know, with Brexit and the difficulties of importing. I thought maybe I could run a much bigger perennial nursery. But I got thwarted 3 times trying to buy land. And in the end, I thought, do you know what? Maybe I can just do more and do better here. So the walled garden and the brick pergola that we were just looking at is me saying, no, how can I make this, what I've got, as good as it can be? And, you know, and the visitor numbers have improved because they want to come and see this new area. And we focus more on efficiency within what we've got and appeal of what we've got, rather than simply going, oh, go and buy more land and try and develop. And so you happen to ask exactly the right question.
Yeah.
There,
Well,
Jo.
and I think what I've always got from following you on social media is that you've always been somebody who enjoys being clever with what they've got, not wasting. I mean, you have a lovely thing on Twitter. Look at that. Isn't that attractive? I remember you were building all of this and I was watching it all happen on Twitter.
This was only finished in April.
I know. And then you've got the lovely moon arch, which we're going to see in a minute. But what you've done is you've made lots more rooms that people can translate into their own gardens, because a lot of people might have a garden this big or smaller, so they can shrink it and then they can imagine what they could put in it. And, you know, this is a demonstration of why a lawn is totally a waste of space.
Well, yeah, it's very quickly become my favourite sort of part of the garden. And yet there's so much promise, you know. Once we get these climbers trailing over and some newly planted passion fruit down here, these are going to join and you'll walk through an arch of foliage and colour.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can. Oh no, there was a passion flower out, but
it's so pretty.
Well, it's kind of been fun for me to have a whole new area to play with.
Well, and then you've got your vegetable
round
it. This is so fantastic.
Can I just stop at this Tithonia? Right?
Oh yes.
So I don't grow annuals. I'm a perennial specialist. That's what I do. But one of the ladies, Jan, who works here, had some Tithonia young plants, and I went, oh, all right then. I love it. Yeah. It's been great. And actually, I think one of the things I've been thinking for a while is to break out of my perennial mould and have more fun and grow things that are just joyful.
Well, and grow them because you love them, and you can then, you know, Ben's selling the seed and people can see how they work in a garden, and then it's that collaborative feel.
Gemma can have some for her cut flower patch.
Gemma can have some for her cut flower patch.
All just things.
And this is, look, and you've still got sweet peas going, look.
Yes, I'd forgotten I planted that one. It sort of got squashed and then regrew.
Well, no, it's very happy over there.
Yeah, and this I'm pretty sure is Blue Enigma.
Yes.
Blue Enigma. Again, that got moved when we replanted all of this, and I think I put it back in thinking, can't remember what that is, but it was here before.
It's fantastic. This is, again, I keep seeing this persica. Is this red dragon?
Yes.
I keep seeing this in different places, and it demonstrates to me again and again and again how wrong the place I have mine is.
It's quite wayward, but I, you know, once you let your plants.
Well, it cuts really beautifully. I mean, the Tithonia, what I love about the Tithonia, it's the velvet. It feels velvety, and this is such a good colour with it. But this this Persicaria cuts really nicely, and I have a pash for the white flower, which is such a lovely contrast at this time with that sort of aubergine.
I mean, so my attitude to cut flowers, I'm really sorry to say this is...
Go ahead, Sue.
As soon as I cut a flower off the plant looks worse. And the flower sort of, it's just, so...
It's compost.
But I'm learning a lot from having Gemma here and looking at the way she looks more closely, because in the garden I tend to look at plants as a whole and in the round, whereas when you're putting a bouquet together that's this big, you're really focusing.
That's what I'm always telling people, that a garden is a view, isn't it? You get a great big swathe going.
My collapsed run of beans in the middle of it. Imagine.
But you get this sort of, you get a, look, if we look back up where we've walked, isn't that absolutely stunning? Whereas when you're growing cut flowers, each individual flower has to be perfect. Yes. And so you'll often find that a cut flower grower has a less beautiful garden than... We're not gardening, cut flower growers, we're growing bouquets. Whereas you're making vistas in which we stand. Yes. And we're making miniature gardens which only work if we look at them up close and personal on a table or somewhere out, an unnatural place. Let's have a look at your moon arch that you built, which I envy you.
So this is the absolutely brand new. It's so brand new. Can I bring you around here to have a quick look at the brick?
Look at that. This is fantastic. A new greenhouse.
Yes, so this area has always been a veg plot, but if you can imagine it feeling about half the size, because very encroached and grown over with shrubs.
Yes.
And the vegetables were grown in short little beds surrounded by box.
Yes.
And the box was getting thicker and thicker, and the gaps between them were getting narrower. The snails, of course, loved it as a home, and then the whole lot, just as I was thinking, I think I want to change this, all the box got box blight.
Oh, God.
Well, the timing
so it just
was perfect.
gave you permission.
Perfect, they did give me permission. The project slightly got out of hand. It was going to be a wall there where there was a tiny little greenhouse before, and a brick arch. So a wall on two sides and a new greenhouse. On this side, the vista takes you through to the shade garden, which looks fantastic in spring.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to block that view.
No.
So my intention was to put a low hedge in. And then my landscaper, Tom, and his lovely crew, and he came in one day so excited. He showed me this picture of a slate moon gate and said, Sue, can I build you this out of brick?
Yeah.
And my answer was, yeah, how quick? I mean, it was so obvious it was going to work.
It's so pretty. Hello, Puss.
Hello. Oh, sorry about the noise, by the way. We're having a door fitted. That's probably coming through on me.
I think, no, it'll be fine. But look at this. Going up the field to the bench in the distance. This is, I look all the time because I don't have a garden. There we go. Isn't that lovely? I don't have a garden. I have a series of cut flower patches. Yeah. And so I'm going to turn. So I have a series of cut flower patches. So I go to other people's gardens and I go, oh my gosh, this is so lovely. In the unlikely event that I end up gardening somebody else's garden, I lose patience really, really quickly. So my poor old mum broke her ankle this year, and I spent quite a lot of time up at her house. And she's got 1/3 of an acre, and it is the single fiddliest garden in the entire world. It takes much more gardening than mine.
Yes.
And this takes much more gardening than mine.
It does, but I think because of the size of it, we have to take a more relaxed approach. Yeah. You know, I see bits of mare's tail come up, or a bit of ground elder, and I've learnt to go, do you know, it doesn't really matter. I will come back to it, it will go, but I don't feel that need to stop what I'm doing and suddenly pull.
Well, you know, ground elder makes great cut flower.
Does it?
Very fine umbellifer.
You know, the variegated one is a lovely plant. I get asked for it all the time.
Very beautiful.
Can I tell you a secret? I do lift it and divide it and pot it up, but I keep it round the back in what I call my adults only section. So if somebody comes into the garden and says, oh, that, I'm right, okay, it's ground elder, but we need to talk. Because what I really don't want is people coming into the nursery and picking up a pot and taking it home and thinking, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, and it completely overwhelms them and 3 neighbours in either direction.
So you can buy it from me, but with parental advice.
I love that. That's very serious. That's very important. I think one of the things that I've always admired about you, I'm going to actually hold the line caller. I'm going to put this, I've got a special place. I'm going to put this, there we go. I balanced the phone on a wall, and now we can stand here and have a little chat. Sue's got her knee on the wall. But anyway, so what I've always really admired about your business is its generosity of spirit. You've always been very kind to other people. So people like Ben and Gemma, who need a sort of resting place as they move on to their next step. But you've also, I love this, if you follow Sue on Twitter, Sue talks all the time about not spending money. Now, this is not a mean place, as you can see. We've walked around a little bit of it, and believe me, there's more. This is a beautiful garden that's really beautifully maintained, and lovely investment like these walls and the moon gates. So there's constantly more being put in to make more of what there is. And you do it by not spending money elsewhere. And you're a real inspiration to me and other people. And I particularly love Sue's thing, talking about the electricity bill.
Well, to me, money that's going out every year for something you cannot see at all, you can't see it at all. The customer doesn't know or care whether I spend £10,000 on electricity or 50 pence.
No.
It makes no difference to my customers' enjoyment of their visit here, but it does affect the price of what I sell. And so to me, if I can reduce... Whoa! Oh!
Nicely done.
Wow.
Look, there we are. I'm just going to hold it. There we go.
Yeah.
If you can reduce...
So if I can reduce completely invisible expenditure that is just going into some of the business's pockets and I don't get any gain back from it, so I will spend more on good compost because the plant grows really well.
Yeah.
We'll invest more in the right kind of plant foods that are sustainable and whatever, but the electricity bill,
Yeah, I totally agree.
what does anybody get from buying?
Totally agree.
You can't see it. So if I can reduce the amount that we use and I can find ways to generate our own, I think it's the right thing anyway. I've had solar panels on my house for 11 years.
Hello, Puss.
And we're still having a debate about whether putting solar panels
Yeah.
on houses is a good idea or not.
I know, I can't believe that they build whole estates without photovoltaic roofs. It just doesn't, I don't understand.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Or even without a south-facing roof that you could put one on one day.
Exactly.
So, I try to embody these arguments by physically going and, instead of spouting about it, I'll go and buy the panels, put them on the roof. And as you correctly say, once a month, I report back on my figures. And I just think it just helps to debunk myths.
Yeah.
When people can say, well, Sue's got them, and that's how many kilowatt hours she got off hers, and they're just on her garage in an order. And I just feel like it's like,
But
well,
also,
make your own choices.
you then look at a place like this and you see, here we have a walled garden. And so instead of spending the money on the electricity bill, let's make something for the future. Let's plant trees. Let's
Yes.
make a sustainable business. Because you and I will not be here forever.
No.
One day we will retire.
Shocking.
We'll retire. But if we've made the place sustainable and it doesn't cost so much to run it, we don't have to retire
that's
so
right.
early. But also, sooner or later, somebody else will probably take over our
That's it.
businesses.
Yeah.
And then they've got something that they don't look at the business as a proposition and go, God, the costs are absolutely
Yes,
eye-watering.
that's right.
They look at the business as a proposition and go, hang on a second, that's really quite efficient.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Ben about how he's never had a printer. He's never had premises, which I think, it's genius level. He's had an
Absolute genius.
online business from the start. So he's not had a shop.
No.
He's not had a warehouse.
He makes way more a year than I do. I'm maintaining all these big physical assets. What a genius he is.
I know, and he is a
Yeah.
genius. I think he's a genius. And I think what I want to do on this YouTube channel,
Yeah.
apart from, show people how to grow flowers, is also show people to think twice about how much it costs to run a business.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of small things. I know I talk about my solar panels, but reducing what you use. So our tea urn, all the tea urns in the world are not insulated. So you're keeping a tea urn running
Yes.
all day for your customers. So I scoured and found an insulated tea urn. Made a huge difference. I mean, seriously.
It never even crossed my mind.
that's
And I've
right.
got a tea urn.
That's
And
right.
it's not insulated.
Exactly, an insulated tea urn. So now, instead of basically running a really great heater in the tea room every day, even on the heat stain, we've swapped the freezer out for a more efficient one.
Yes.
And so these are the sort of things I think I would say for £100, don't don't stand and worry about how many kilowatt hours it's going to work out and save. Just do it now, because if it just about works now, as the cost of energy go up, it will just become more and more efficient.
But even things like, I remember ordering plants from you during lockdown, and so this lovely box of plants, I had 2 or 3 boxes of plants arrived, and you had taken, and I know it's easy to grow plants in plastic pots. I say that plastic pots are going to become like gold bars, because actually they're really useful, so long as they're not cracked. Good quality plastic pot will keep you going for some years. So, but you had taken all the plants out of the plastic pots, and you had wrapped them in newspaper, and you put them in a box, and there was a little bit of scrunched up, it was all recycled, reused, compostable packaging.
We do it on request now, and the reason for that is that a lot of people want the pots.
Yeah.
But we have gone over from black pots to taupe pots, and the reason for that is that council recycling systems
will take them.
The machines they use to sift out one product from another can tell what type of plastic a taupe pot is, because it registers on there, whereas the black ones just reflect.
They said no.
That they just have to reject them because the machines can't tell what type of plastic they're made of. So if we simply move from, so the pots we now use are made from post-consumer plastic waste, and are themselves recyclable. So they're still plastic. But we can all make this.
We can make little differences, and it is often,
whether it's tea urns or
And I totally agree, and I think it is often the case that you make a little difference, and it costs the business less. So it costs the customer less. But it also means the business can then stand back and go, oh well, okay, well, let's reinvest in the business. And look,
that's it.
If I were coming to this garden to have a look round, I would be very inspired by the layout. I'd be inspired by the wall. Everything is translatable for a domestic sized garden. Although it is a big space, it is something you can shrink it and envisage it in your. It's actually one of the pieces of feedback we get most often from visitors, is that they say, we love it here because it feels they don't necessarily use the word relatable, but that comes up a lot. It feels like I could make, not necessarily something so big, but I can see how I could translate this into my garden.
Yes, each section of the garden, everything's interlinked. There are no walls. You just naturally flow from one to the other. But it is in parcel-sized components.
Well, it's brilliant. And I have to say, when I'm endlessly banging on about the benefits of social media, Sue and I met on social media probably 12 years ago. I started on Twitter 12 years ago, and I reckon you were definitely on Twitter 12 years ago. Yeah. So right at the beginning, when all the gardeners started going, oh look, I don't live in a vacuum. There are other people doing similar work to me, far, far away, also in rural areas. And look, I can make friends with them and have things to talk about.
I know, social media gets such a bad rap, but I just ignore all the rubbish. I just don't take any notice. And I just find people I adore. It's great.
I find people I really admire and people who are full of good ideas. So here is Sue, who's full of good ideas. And if you're ever up this way on the Warrington end of the M6, you're open from...
So the gardens are open April to September, Wednesday to Saturday.
Yes.
You don't have to remember that. I think the key is bluebellcottage.co.uk and check before you come.
I'll put the link in the blurb. Thank you so much, Sue. It's been really. I've made 3 clips here this morning. I've only been here for an hour.
It's lovely to chat. It really is.
Well, I think that says a great deal about the hub of creativity that you've made here. So well done, and thank you very much for letting me come and join in for an hour or two.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.